everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. Happy Monday. And can you believe it? I actually know what day of the week it is. This is a miracle. My guest does not know this about me, but I can never figure out what day of the week it is for whatever reason. But I will say this, I work every day, so that is part of the problem. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my schedule. We are here to hear some wonderful information from my new friend, Eric Almeida. Come on in. Hi there, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great, Julianne. How are you?
So good. So glad to finally have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for a while now. So
awesome.
I would love it if you would tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Absolutely. So I'm Eric Almeida. I'm an emotional freedom technique practitioner. And so what that essentially is the emotional freedom technique utilizes tapping on meridian points on the body in order to calm the fight, flight, and freeze response that we all naturally have. And so what got me onto this journey was actually 2 years ago in 2018, I ended up having a panic attack at the job I was working at. And essentially, up until that point, I had been really white knuckling it through life and kind of ignoring all of my issues and things like that, and really kind of burying everything. And, I was great at compartmentalization, of shoving things into mental boxes and being like, I'll just look at that later or never. And so it finally came to a head with the panic attack that kind of took that away from me. I just couldn't hold anything back anymore. And so I ended up having to take a leave of absence from that particular job. And the panic attack actually evolved into me becoming agoraphobic, meaning I was scared to leave my house. I actually locked myself mainly in a bedroom on the first floor for a couple of weeks, just like alternating between like freaking out and hysterical crying. And my husband was like, I don't know what's going on, but it was a big old mess. And so I reached out to a therapist colleague of mine who had incorporated EFT into her practice. And she was able to help me over the phone before I ended up getting to a point where I felt comfortable actually going to her office in person. And after doing work with her for several months, up to about a year or so, I ended up leaving that job pretty quickly, realizing it wasn't for me, and ended up actually starting my own business as an antique store owner. It was kind of my when I retired job, and I did that up until the beginning of COVID. Unfortunately, when I closed, which had nothing to do with COVID, I actually got out of it just in time before the lockdown started here in Massachusetts. It was just coincidence and my intuition screaming like, get out. And so in the middle of all of the COVID stuff, I found a job doing some commercial cleaning just to pay the bills. And I was just looking to find like my true path again. And when I had graduated from college, I graduated with a psych degree with the intention of becoming a clinician. And I walked away from that path because when I started working in the field back when I was 21, I worked at a residential program for young children, and it was just rough. Like, you're dealing with kids who are in a really tough situation, and it was a facility that if you wanted to be institutionalized, you wanted to go there. There was no bars in the windows or anything like that, but it was rough to work with those kids. So I walked away from that field for years and years and years. But after doing all of the work on myself with the EFT with my therapist from that back then, I decided to explore becoming certified myself. So I went through the training during COVID and just fell completely in love with doing this as a practice to heal other people. And so I ended up getting certified and opening up my own practice, and then just kind of passing on this gift that EFT gave to me to other people. So what EFT is, because people might be like, well, what the heck is it? So like I said it briefly in the beginning, you're tapping on meridian points on the body. So there's 10 of them primarily. So it's the top of the head, dead in the middle, the eyebrow at the bridge of the nose, the side of the eye, under the eye, the upper lip, the lower lip, the collarbone, under the arm beneath the armpit, the inner wrist, and the side of the hand. And the reason why you tap on these points is that it helps calm down the fight, flight, and freeze response that we all naturally have. So this is the response that you have if you're driving on the highway and someone starts merging into your lane, you jut out of the way. It's the same response you have if you're going for a hike and a snake crosses your path and you jump. We need that for basic survival. It's what's kept humanity alive for as long as we've been around. But where that becomes a problem is when that system is activated unnecessarily. So any event that you experience that's a traumatic event, and by traumatic, I'm using the lowercase t, meaning any event that has a strong emotional response that's negative will activate that system. And your mind, your subconscious will be like, okay, we perceived danger when this happened to us, so we're going to remember this and make sure we never get in the situation again. And for the car merging into your lane, for the snake, those are practical things, because those you could get into serious accidents or injuries. But like getting made fun of in school, or having a bad presentation, or your parents having a bad day and they snap at you, that is when that system gets activated because you get scared or you get provoked, strong emotional response. But then that system gets activated, and then you kind of get stuck with that, and it lingers. So a perfect example would be your boss gives you a critique on your work. And if everything was fine, you would just take the critique. Your feelings might be hurt a little bit. That'd be pretty normal. But if your boss gives you the critique and then your immediate response is to curse them out, that's something from the past that's fueling that kind of immediate response back. And so by doing the tapping, you're calming that system down and allowing yourself to slowly allow whatever's in the past to slowly come to the surface for you to then to process and then eventually let it go. So it could be very beneficial for traumatic experiences, like I mentioned. It's fantastic for PTSD, and then any kind of other, it's great for phobias. It's, great for building self-confidence and for working on limiting beliefs, because you're calming your system down and allowing your frontal lobe, your cognitive mind, to process these emotions that never got a chance to be processed in the past, no matter how far back you're going, even before you having conscious memories of it anymore. Even like little infant baby kind of memories, which sounds weird to think like, oh, you actually do remember that stuff. And it's buried, it's deep in the foundations of our mind. It's there to access.
Well, I actually know, because I have memories from the crib before I could talk. And I know that sounds really bizarre, but I really genuinely do. And so I get it. And it's just because you don't, like, why are we afraid of things necessarily if we've never even seen them before that we remember, because it doesn't come from nowhere, because there's things that you're not afraid of. So things that maybe you should be, like touching a hot stove, for example, so, sure. I mean, it makes sense to me that it would be something that, it could go way, way, way back.
Absolutely. And fundamentally, a lot of the work that I do does involve things that happen with people's parents. Not to say that parents do a poor job. It's just parents are so influential.
Yeah.
And so all it takes is something small for it to be impactful on a child. And for a young child, especially, a little kid, a toddler and things like that, they're 100% reliant on their parents for survival. So anything that a child perceives that it could interrupt their ability to have that connection to their parents, they're immediately going to be like, oh my God, I can't do that again. Yeah. Because if I lose my parents, I will die. And it kind of like, our systems are designed to keep us alive, not keep us happy, keep us alive. And so that system gets activated. So a lot of times, clients will come in with some kind of surface level issue. It could be, the most common one being fear of public speaking. And so like a client will come in with that particular issue. And so we'll do the tapping on that initial fear and be like, well, how does that feel? Where do you feel that in your body? What emotions are you experiencing? And then we'll do the tapping on that. And that usually calms the person down. And eventually with time, some memory will come up. So for me personally, one of the core memories for me for public speaking was in middle school. I was giving a science presentation on a film camera. Actually, ironically, I happen to have one next to me by chance. And I was having to explain, how a film camera works and the cellophane film and the light and all that kind of jazz. And I didn't prepare enough for it. And so I kind of, in the middle of trying to give the presentation, basically said to the teacher, I'm not prepared. And so the teacher was upset, and there was some snickering from my classmates, or at least that's what I remember. That might not even be true. And so that was one of the seeds that that erupted into me being scared to do public speaking back in the past, before I worked on that memory and kind of got the emotion out of it. And so that tends to be the core purpose of the EFT work, is to you alleviate the immediate symptoms and what's being felt, and then you slowly go into the person's past and kind of help heal whatever's ready to heal.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I'm actually just curious though, because you mentioned something about how it feels when you tap in these areas. Are you telling me that when people do this, they might feel pain, or like physical pain, or is it more like an emotion that's not comfortable?
So typically what will happen, I've never had anyone ever experience physical pain, short of them actually having an injury on a particular spot, which I would just say skip it. But typically what ends up happening is whatever emotions from their past that they didn't deal with will come up for them to then process in the present. Gotcha. And so that emotion can be uncomfortable. It could be unpleasant. So you're talking about either sadness, fear, anger, or shame. And then the fifth primary emotion is happiness, which we're fine with the happiness. And so when that ends up happening, when you start tapping into those older memories, those emotions come up, and the tapping allows you not only to feel those emotions, but also allows them to pass. So you're not feeling those emotions for too long per se. And if a person gets overwhelmed in those emotions, there's techniques to help them pass through it faster. So you actually would just tap faster through the points. So you'd go super, super fast. So if someone was reliving something that really had a lot of emotion to it, they may be crying, I would stop doing the verbal component of the tapping, and I would just guide them through, okay, we're just going to tap very fast, side of the eye, under the eye, upper lip, lower lip. So fast, like just go quick through every single point, because by doing it faster, you're calming their system down quicker, and then they'll get to a point where they start to relax, and whatever emotion they were feeling will subside more naturally on its own.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I really want the audience to get this, is that with tapping and how, I can understand if you're thinking about something that's, right there, but what, like an emotion or something that you want to work on, like public speaking and that fear, what I'm hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that by doing the tapping, it's like you're showing your body, giving it permission to bring up these other things so that you can take care of them as well. And so it feels safe, like it kept it away from your consciousness for a reason.
Exactly. So our subconscious is designed to keep us alive, but also to keep things away from us that are too painful. And so that's why it holds those things back. And when you're doing the tapping, you're calming your entire system down, your body, your mind, your soul, the whole thing. You're calming your whole energetic system down. And what ends up happening is when the contemporary issue those emotions start to subside, whatever you're feeling in the present moment start to subside, the older stuff gently comes to the surface, because your mind is like, oh, I feel better. And so this is one of the reasons why we're feeling upset right now. And so it'll slowly come into the front of your mind. And so then my clients will say, oh, this memory came up of when I was 20 or when I was 10 or whatever it was. And I'll be like, okay, well, tell me about it. What happened? What was going on? And then they'll tell me about what was happening in the memory and the experience that occurred to them. And I would say to them, that memory is connected in some way to what we were talking about before. It may be very linear, like the example I gave with myself of the presentation and the fear of public speaking. That's very linear. Other times it may not make logical sense, but there's a reason why it came up.
Yeah.
And so we'll do the tapping, and then I'll use my experience and my intuition to try to see, what about this memory is contributing to it. And then sometimes it'll, as you do the tapping and you keep tapping on it, it's just, the client will keep talking about what's going on and what comes up for them and what they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, here it is. It's like, your fear of public speaking, the reason why this memory of your mom saying this thing about this outfit you're wearing is because your mom has always been so critical of the way you look before you're in front of other people. Thus, you now have a fear of public speaking as an extension of that. It's so there is a weird logic to it all once you dig enough into it. And so it does calm the body down for sure, like you were saying, because a lot of our emotion gets tethered into our bodies. When it comes to, the classic one is like muscle tension and things like that. A big one too would be digestive upset. I'm so guilty of that. Where all of my emotion would go into my gut and I'd feel nauseous as heck. And so it goes after that as well. And it can even help alleviate other kind of chronic illnesses when it comes to the emotional addition that it's contributing to those kinds of things. So I don't want to oversell it too far on that route. But if you have something like that's flared up because of your emotions, EFT can help at least lower that side of it, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that you mentioned that though, because our emotion, what's that saying? We keep our issues in our tissues. And it is going to manifest physically in our body. So I do love that you mentioned that, because a lot of people don't get the correlation. They might understand, if they're feeling fearful, that their stomach's upset because they're feeling fear, but that's about as far as they go with that. There's a guest who had made a comment, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about it.
I love the question.
So she says that she doesn't like the feel of tapping when she's done it. So what does that mean? Is there does she need to do more work, or is it just, I'm assuming she's not the only one.
So there's two ways that this could go based on how she asked it. So it could either be a physical discomfort, meaning one of the points or some of the points, for whatever reason, the actual act of tapping is uncomfortable. So what I would say in that regard is, if it's that avenue, I would say just skip those locations. It's not a big deal. If you don't like what you feel because you're feeling emotional upset, either you're doing it alone and you're not going far enough, or whatever's coming up is making you very uncomfortable. And so what I would actually say would be, can she follow up? I'm curious.
Oh, let's see. Helene, I know you're there.
Are you tapping alone or with a practitioner? Because that will help guide I'll keep answering the question though. And so if you're doing it alone and you're doing the tapping and something does come up, it might scare you and thus make you want to stop, and then you feel uncomfortable. Like you feel like gross because you're bringing something closer to the surface, but you're not resolving it. So you're just making it more obvious. Because I'll say this, with 99% of the time with my clients in session, when they leave my session, which is a 50-minute session, they feel more calm and more relaxed than they did when they started the session. And that's even if we dive deep into their past, and even if we brought up horrible things from their past and they were crying and all that kind of stuff. At the end of it, I always say, I always bring my clients back to a place where they're back to an emotional equilibrium.
I love
it.
And
like I said, 99% of the time they feel great, they feel calm, and then the 1% of the time is only I did not do it alone.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that particular example, then I would say the person that you're working with needs to keep taking you further in order for you to get the healing that you need, because that's very unusual otherwise. Because I've never had a client stay at a level of upheaval too long, because I bring them back. I bring them back to equilibrium intentionally. I plan out my sessions with my clients so that when we're diving deep in, that's in the middle of the session, because I want plenty of time for them to slowly bring them back to the present and for them to be comfortable when they leave. So, yeah, that's the most I could say.
Through.
It's part of it is pushing through, but part of it is also honoring that it's a lot. And so if whatever she's working on is something really big from her past, then you do have to be more delicate about it. And kind of, there's a technique called tapping around the issue, where you circle the issue almost like a whirlpool, and you'll slowly get closer and closer before you go right into the meat of it. And the way that looks would be something like this, where it's like, I'm having a hard time with this, and I don't really want to think about it, but it fills me with a lot of fear. And I've been holding on to this for a very long time, but I'm not ready to talk about it. And I'm okay with that. I'm not ready to, we're never saying what it is, but you're still doing the tapping. You're still calming the system down, and the client's mind is still focusing to an extent on the issue and in some capacity. And it does slowly calm them down. That's incredibly effective, in particular for PTSD or really traumatic experiences where a person doesn't want to relive it, because reliving it, if it's something really bad, can be traumatic, can be more damaging. Can be traumatic again. Yeah, exactly.
So Helene made another comment, and apparently she's doing it with a friend, so it wasn't. There you go.
Okay, so you're doing it with someone whose level of training isn't at a practitioner level. So what I would say for you then is, if you're continuing to do it alone or with someone who isn't a practitioner, if you get to that point where you're feeling uncomfortable, tap faster and stop talking about whatever you're talking about, and just tap faster and just allow that weirdness to gently pass. And just keep tapping as fast as you can tap. And just be like, I'm just tapping on what I'm feeling, and I don't feel comfortable, and that's okay. It's gonna pass. I'm just gonna keep tapping until I feel better. And then what ends up happening, and an interesting thing you can even pay attention with yourself, I see this all the time with my clients, is they'll do the they've crossed over something, and just keep tapping as fast as you can until you get to a point where you feel calm. And if for some reason even that doesn't get you there, honestly, this might sound a little harsh. Stop. Don't do it. Then do it with a practitioner. You're going into something that you
shouldn't be doing alone.
You shouldn't be doing alone. I say to people all the time, you don't necessarily want to wander into your mind by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
There's demons and zombies in there. You got to be careful. So.
Yeah, and something that I learned from somebody that was really amazing, and this is just for those people that are doing it alone, is something you might want to do at the end of something like that. Like if you're just not having a good experience, if that is, whatever, then to end with something you enjoy doing, so that there's like an end point and you leave it on a high note. So you can come back to it again at another point if you choose to. But I know a lot of people think that they can solve these issues with just, one time. And
no. So in that so there are very specific situations where a one session thing can solve a problem. It's very, very specific. I actually had a client where this panned out. It was just a fluke on the timing of when we had the session. The only time that really happens in a single session would be whatever issue happened incredibly recently, and it did not activate anything else. So you're literally catching the seed of a problem before it starts. A great example would be, you get in a car accident. It's the first car accident you've ever had. And now you're starting to feel a little skittish about driving, but you never did before.
Yeah.
If you do some tapping on that, you can stop that seed of the fear before it ever plants roots.
Oh, I love it.
But it would have to be completely isolated and not trigger anything else from your past. It can be done, but it's rare. So like the example I have with an actual client was, this particular client had a miscarriage. And it was just dumb luck that the miscarriage happened 2 days before our session together. And so this client was became concerned about her fertility. And that was a concern she never had. And so in one session, we were able to get past her fear of not being able to have a baby again. Because it was a new thing. It had never happened before. She never had that concern before. And it was literally less than 48 hours after the miscarriage. So that belief of I can't have kids anymore, we got it out before it ever had any chance to plant roots. So like I said, it can be done. It's very circumstantial. It's very circumstantial.
Well, we are going to go to commercial break, so we'll be back in just a minute. Thank you so much, Eric.
Of course, thank you.
So everyone, isn't he amazing? I happen to know a bit about tapping, but I'm going to say he knows a lot about tapping, which is pretty amazing. But we do have to go to commercial break. But before we do, as always, I want to say hello to all the guests that are watching live. You are very much appreciated. And we'll be right back after these messages.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. And I just want to bring our guest right back on. Hi Eric, welcome back.
Thank you.
So, before we get back into conversation, I really want to take a moment and let people know how they can get a hold of you. So I've included your website. I'm pointing at you. Sorry, I'm not good at that. Your website down below. But tell people a little bit about what they can find when they go to that site.
Absolutely. So my website is ericeft.com, and that's Eric with a C. And so you can see a little bit about my back history and some of the specialities that I work with. I do have a specialty in the LGBT plus community because I'm a gay man, so I want to help support my own community as well, but I can help just about anyone in that regard. And you can set up a free consultation, 20-minute consultation with me to see if we're a good fit and if EFT is a good fit for you as well. Because I always say to people, when it comes to mental health work, you need to connect with the practitioner and also with the technique. If you don't connect with both, it ain't going to work. And another great thing too with my website is if you sign up for my newsletter, you can stay up to date with all of the free events that I offer and free workshops that are coming out. So I have a free workshop coming out on July 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard, which would be, I can't do math, 4?
What time did you say?
7 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah, it's 4.
4 o'clock on the West Coast. And
Yep.
it's going to be focusing specifically on life transitions because especially here in Mass, we just began the reopening process. So we're going to do a little bit of tapping on the transition of dealing with being able to go out to dinner and see friends and family again and things like that.
Yeah.
Something that's parts of California are still beginning to do that process. And then also other more conventional life transitions like, you know, a child moving out of the home for the first time, or maybe you're getting married, or maybe you're getting divorced, those kinds of things. So giving you a nice little taste run of like, you know, we'll do some tapping during the workshop so you can see kind of how it works, get a real taste of it, and it doesn't cost you anything.
And it's on Zoom then, I assume?
Yeah, it's all going to be on Zoom. It's completely free. You can, if you go to my website, you can sign up for the newsletter or go to my Facebook to then register once those things are up. And I'll have more events, free workshops throughout the year. I'm going to be doing one in, I believe it is either late October or early November, specifically revolving around how to handle family during the holidays, which I anticipate being quite popular. Because I don't know about you, but there's almost always one person you want to stab with the dinner knife at Thanksgiving or Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever the heck the holiday is for you. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Also, for those of you who are wanting to go to his website, you can reach his Facebook from there as well. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. But anyway, I was thinking during the commercial break about a bunch of different things, but one of the things that came up for me, especially from Helene's question, was, can you do it wrong? Like, can you do more damage?
No. So that's one of the lovely things about EFT is that either it works or it does nothing. Mm-hmm. So when you're tapping on the points, if you're not tapping exactly where the acupressure point is, it's not the end of the world. The order of the points doesn't matter. Tapping on every single point doesn't matter. Left hand, right hand doesn't matter. Two hands or one hand doesn't matter. The main way for it to work is that you do have to be mentally focusing on what you're wanting to work on. So if you're just sitting on the couch watching TV and just zoning out and you're tapping, you'll feel nice and calm, but it won't do much besides make you feel calm. So like you can't be. That's where it'll be less effective. You'll be calm, you'll feel nice and content, but you're not doing anything deeper beyond that. It'd be like massaging a muscle that doesn't need to be massaged at that point, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you can't do it wrong. You can't do it wrong. I still, like what happened with Helene, you do want to be careful doing it alone or doing it with someone who's inexperienced if you go into deep waters that you're not ready for. And that's the only caution I would say is that if you start creeping in, you'll feel it. If you start creeping into something that is that feels too much for you to handle, what I would recommend is write whatever that was down, whether it's a memory or a feeling or whatever happened, and then work with some mental health practitioner on it, whether it's EFT or not. It's another nice thing with EFT. It plays very well with others. It plays very, very well with others. I know conventional therapists that incorporate it in their practice. I know physical therapists who incorporate it into their practice because there's so much utility behind it, and it's so gentle, and it's very easy to use. It's very easy for someone to learn on their own and to practice. And that's one of the things that sometimes happens with conventional talk therapy is like you get the hour, but then the rest of the week you're on your own. And so with the tapping is you can keep tapping on your own when stuff comes up. And, there are plenty of times where, clients don't because, it's a new habit and it's always hard to learn a new habit, blah, blah, blah. But then in those moments where you actually do engage with it, you then are like, oh, I do feel better. I do feel calmer. It's like, oh, I don't want to strangle my husband or my wife right now. Oh, it helped. Look at that. It's like,
wow.
Kind of yes. I know.
Imagine that.
Imagine having a healthy, comfortable, loving relationship. And it's like, yeah, tapping can help with that. So you don't end up stabbing your relative or friend or family member.
That's jail time will definitely be a traumatic experience.
No one wants that.
So, I know that I mean, there's like different videos and YouTubes and things like that are available for people. And I love how you say that, not going too deep on your own, and you'll know that. And I think that's smart for like, even if you're talking about issues with your friends, probably not. I mean, if you're going to go deep, that's probably not the best person to talk to. So same idea.
It's not, I caution it only, it's great to have the confidant.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be healing. I don't want to take that away from people. It's just your friend, your confidant, your family member, whoever it is, if they're not equipped to help you when you're really getting deep in, that's where it could be it can have the potential to be damaging.
Yeah.
Because when you get that vulnerable and the person doesn't know what to say, or they say something that just hits you the wrong way, it's going to hurt. Because because you're exposing a deep emotional wound. And if someone pokes you the wrong way, you're going to recoil.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of where I say, just, be careful. Like, it's fine if you're going into something that you've already explored a little bit, or it's not super traumatic. So, like, one of the things I do with my clients as part of the EFT work is, judging how strong whatever you're working on is on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you feel no emotion at all, and 10 being, like you're completely overcome with emotion. And so what I would say is, when you're doing work on your own or with a friend who isn't a practitioner, assess with yourself, how strong is this right now for me? So just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just be like, how strong is this emotion to me? 0 being there's no emotion, and 10 being I'm completely overcome with emotion. And I would say if it's anything 7 or higher, I would be very careful doing that alone. Even me as a practitioner in my free workshops, I say to the people who attend, don't do anything that's honestly over a 5, because the free workshops are not designed for them to be that deep. Yeah. Because I can't help the dozens of people that are there going deep into things. Yeah. And so I always say to people, like, you want to work on something that's a 5 or less, because that's something where I could quickly get someone out of it by just helping them tap faster and things like that, and guiding them a little bit through it if need be.
No, I love that, because it makes me think of, like, you don't go to an electronics store to buy bread. So, you got to know it's the same idea. You're going to be disappointed.
Well, exactly. Like, it's one thing.
There's anything wrong with either, but I'm just saying.
No, it's true. There's a difference between having a friend help you pull out a splinter and having a friend help you reset a bone. Yeah. There's a big difference there. So if your friend's a paramedic, then sure, or a doctor, that's different. That's a friend who is also experienced in mental health in some capacity. Then they can potentially help you reset the bone. But no, like, you see the professional to reset the bone. You don't do that you're alone. You don't do that with someone who's like, oh, I watched a YouTube video. I can. It's like, no. Like, sure, pull out a splinter. You don't do stitches yourself either. Some people do, but you shouldn't. Like think of it like that. Like, how far in the medical world would you go alone? A splinter. A scrape, a bruise. Yeah, fine. You clean the wound with some water and some clean soap, and you can put a Band-Aid on. You'll be fine. But, like, you break a bone, the bone's sticking out of this. Like, no. Like, what are you doing? No. That's the stuff you see a professional.
Exactly.
You see the professional.
Exactly.
Don't do that alone. You're gonna hurt yourself unintentionally.
Yeah. So something that I really want to touch on is that how important. I mean, okay, this is coming from me, just so everybody watching knows this.
Go ahead, ask away.
No, this is more like a statement. This is more like I think that the audience should really think about this one. Is that yes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with going to the YouTube or watching the video or doing it on your own. However, it is, and because I know some people might be like, well, I don't want to spend the money. And my input or my invitation is to look at it differently. And what is it costing you? How much, I mean, like, really, how much is it costing you? Like, for you not being able to leave your house. Yeah. I would do pretty much anything to be able to leave my house again. Am I going to sit there and dilly-dally around with some YouTube videos, or am I going to go get some real help? Like,
no, I totally agree. And the books, the YouTube videos, the apps, I think are a great way to test the waters with it and see if you like it. And you can go for the low hanging fruit. If you have little things like, like I said, the 5s and unders that you want to try to do on your own, be my guest and see how, and just go as far as you can go on your own. And if you can knock out some of those lower ones, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's just, the only reason I caution for the stronger ones only because you're going into the depths of your own mind, and you're not seeing things clearly when you're dealing with some of those old emotions. And so you need the third party perspective to kind of be like, to kind of keep you grounded. And that's what you can't do alone. No, even myself, I can't do this stuff alone. When I have to do, when I did deeper work, or even when I do some deeper work now, I do it with an experienced practitioner because, I can get, even with all of my experience and expertise, I can only go so far before it's just not effective because my own mind is fighting against me. It's kind of like, we don't want you to go here. It's trying to protect me. And so that's where the practitioner brings you there gently, and you have the safety of a guide. That's the thing. It's, so there's nothing wrong with the YouTube videos. There's nothing wrong with the apps or the books. And honestly, give it a go. Give it a run. It's very safe to use alone, as long as you're not going into the real depths of your mind and really kind of tinkering in there. Because then you're kind of like, be careful. You never know.
Yeah, so. And opening up wounds on your own is not necessarily the best idea. I mean, especially you hit them for a reason. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, it's an injustice to yourself. So like you're hurting yourself when you do those kinds of things. And so like a lot of the kind of work that I do, the deep work that I do, so I can describe it, so people are kind of like, oh my God, really? Like a lot of the deep work that I do is like, when that memory is found, is especially when the memory is very, very old, when it's a very young person who experienced it. Now I'm dealing with the adult. When that memory is found, part of the work I do is to get the adult version of my client to communicate with the past version of their client. Because when they had that traumatic experience, part of them splintered off and is stuck there. And it's like Groundhog Day. They're repeating that trauma over and over and over again, and they also don't grow up. So if you had a traumatic experience when you were 10, there's a 10-year-old version of you who is stuck there. So a lot of what I do is when we find where that is and who it is that we're talking to, we gently get them to talk to the client, to the adult version, and express what is going on, to let them express the emotion and what they're experiencing while they're doing the tapping. And that facilitates the healing. And then part of that too is asking that past version of themselves, what do they need that they didn't get back then? And the adult version gives it to them.
Yeah.
So many of us wish that our parent or the bully would say the thing we always wish them to say. And unfortunately, it's very rare that ever happens. Yeah. And for the lucky few people where they get exactly what they want, it's not enough. Because only you're the one who has to heal yourself. Yeah. Not the outside world. So, if you were bullied and the bully's long gone, you can fix that. You can heal that with yourself. If you have a parent who did not do a great job, to put it lightly, even if they're still alive, you can still heal what they did to you and then be able to have an appropriate relationship with them in the present, even if that relationship is nothing. Yeah. And so that's that really deep work that it's almost, I don't know of anyone who can do it alone. Yeah. And for anyone who has experience or knowledge of psychoanalysis or internal family systems, those modalities are doing similar things like I described. I use bits and pieces of what I've learned from those modalities as well. So I'm not just pure EFT kind of work. The tapping is just a great method to get there very efficiently.
Well, I like that because you're physically doing something, you're awakening more parts of your body. Literally, it's like you are, I can't even figure out how to say this right. Like reconnecting your body with your mind.
Yes.
I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
So that makes, Because sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, because people might be being like, well, why the heck would I want to do all of that? That sounds like a cruddy experience. Here's the thing. And this is, one of my teachers taught me this analogy, and it's a great analogy. And I continue to repeat it. So I'm going to give him credit, even though I regrettably forgot his name. Our mental vitality is like we're born. Imagine it that you're born with an army. That's your mental vitality, your mental strength. And everyone is born with a different size army. That's just circumstance. You might have 1,000 soldiers, you might have 700, whatever. As you go through life, you use your mental army to deal with the present. But if whatever the present issue isn't resolved properly, some of your soldiers stay on the field to continue to fight the fight. But you continue on living your life. So your army goes from 1,000 to 950 to 900 to 700, and you keep dwindling if you don't deal with it properly in the present moment or don't go with the past. When something in the present requires an army that exceeds what you have available to you, you have no choice but to pull some soldiers from these other battles that are still being fought. And that gets expressed in some form of mental illness of some kind. So that is the overeating, that is the sleeplessness, that is the digestive issues, that is the physical tension, that is the anxiety, the depression. If you take that to the extreme, that you can go into, having panic attacks like myself. It could go into a complete psychological break. Like that's what ends up happening. So when the main reason for doing this work and kind of cleaning up the past is that those soldiers come back to your active army and you gain that vitality back. Yeah. And amazingly enough, you also sometimes get other things that that were kind of the casualties of war. Yeah. It's really interesting. I'll give a personal example, because a client example, I think. I always want to protect their identity. When I didn't come out as a gay man until I was 21. And one of the really weird things when I came out and I finally allowed that part of me to express itself, I was able to sing songs. This is really strange, but before I came out, I could not remember song lyrics. Wow. That part of my mind was pulled into what I was suppressing. And so I've had clients get in touch with parts of themselves that they forgot they lost. It could be confidence. It could be it could just be vitality. It could be just go-gettedness. I've seen people, I've worked with clients who, they came to me because they were having issues advocating for themselves for work and really promoting their work and growing their businesses. And it was because of a belief that they couldn't do it or they weren't qualified enough or whatever. And when that went away, they like a bat out of hell were able to just go crazy with their work, because they were just like, they took the weight off of themselves and they just flew. Yeah. And it's amazing to see. And for them, it's like, I'm not scared to do this. I'm not scared to do live presentations. I'm not scared to do Facebook Lives or send ad copy out or tell every person who doesn't want to listen to me what I do and stuff like that. Like there's always a benefit. There's always the positive too. Even just having the raw vitality, when something hard happens in the present, you can deal with it easier. You don't snap at your spouse or your partner as quickly. You're able to be more patient with your kids. You're able to handle stressful things at work easier. Because life is hard, and there's nothing that can erase that. There's nothing that can erase that. We're always going to have to deal with disease in some capacity, aka COVID. and other things like it. We're always going to have to deal with death, and we're always going to have to deal with loss. Those are unavoidable things, no matter what they try to sell you online. Those harshnesses of life, we can't erase them. We can only make ourselves stronger and to be able to endure them. And that, and live, and then as a result, live happier, more fulfilled lives.
No, I love that. We have about 4 minutes left, and I would love, first of all, I want to put up your, I can never figure that out. There we go.
You got it.
Opposite way. I'm like, my finger won't go. Yeah, we have about 4 minutes left, and I would love for you to share any final thoughts or anything that you really want the audience to know about what it is that you do.
Absolutely. And it goes back to what I was saying before. You need to connect with the technique, and you need to connect with the practitioner when it comes to working on your mental health. And there are so many different modalities that you can go down. EFT is one of many. They all go to the same place within us in just different avenues. And so if you think EFT is something that might interest you, give it a try. Look at the YouTube videos. Feel free to reach out to me, or if you don't like me for whatever reason, I'm fine with that. I don't care. Then find someone else. There's lots of other practitioners out there who'd be happy to help. And that's the thing. Your mental health journey is your own. And I see myself as just a guide. I walk with people on their journey for as long as they want me, even if it's one session or it's 20, whatever they need, whatever they want to work on. And then we part ways, and they're better off, and so am I. And so yeah.
No, I love that. So, and this might be a loaded question, but
go for it.
We got like 3 minutes. But so one of the things, and I'm not trying to bag on therapy at all, because I've been to therapy and it has done me a world of good. But the one thing I've never really liked about therapy is, it seems like you never really seem to get any better. Like you have to keep going for whatever reason. It seems to me like with tapping, at least, that you at least have, like you said, it's not once a week. It's like you can do this on your own, and maybe when things do come up, you come back and you work with somebody again. But it seems, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I just wanted your thoughts.
So every modality has its level of effectiveness, and a big part of that too is the practitioner.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of people who do EFT that aren't that great at it. Like just like there's plenty of doctors who aren't that great at it. There's plenty of everyone who aren't that great at it. So when you're working with someone, and this kind of applies to kind of anything, but in particular with mental health, if you're working with someone mental health, you walk in, hopefully they're asking you what your goals are to work on. You walk in, you set what your goal is, and then you assess how you're progressing towards that goal. And so, and always assessing to see where you are and if you're noticing improvement. And so there's no guaranteed amount of time. I can't say, in this amount of time you should be able to get over something. It's everyone's too unique for that. But like, if you've been with someone for, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but if you've been working on something using the same person and the same modality, and you feel like you've hit a wall, and for whatever reason you can't get past it, that's where I would say, not necessarily stop seeing that other person, but try something else and see if it does something different. Because you never know what something else could be enough to shake it loose. I've had clients who see me for a few sessions while they have a conventional therapist.
Exactly.
And sometimes I can just, I help them just knock the thing out of the tree, and then they do the pickup work with someone else, and that's fine. I'm not.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you. And then it also depends on what your relationship is with this other person. If you're working with someone for a very long time and it's more maintenance, that's fine. We all need maintenance. Yeah. And so like if you're seeing someone once a month and it's just a monthly checkup of just being like, this is what's going on, and this was a little rough, and then they kind of, it's like the tune-up with the car, the oil change, the tune-up. That's fine. It's no different. Like, it's no different than going to the gym and things like that. So.
Awesome. Well, with that, that's all the time we have for the show today. So Eric, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, everyone. That is it for now. We will see you on Thursday. Thank you and have a great week.